Hello, my name is KZ781. I am a Narnia speedrunner, and today this will be my license-a-thon submission for the cheat percent category in Narnia: The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe for the GameCube, Xbox, PC, and PlayStation 2. Today we'll be doing cheat percent, which is basically any percent, but a set of cheats is allowed, those being invulnerability, getting 10k coins, and unlocking all the abilities for the children. So, invulnerability, exactly what it sounds like. The abilities are what you use your coins to spend on, which basically give the children more powerful attacks, better abilities, like shooting bow and arrow faster or whatever, and upgrading health along those lines. So we're going to get into it, but first we need to input the cheat. We need to set up cheat mode. So we can do this by holding down left and right at the title screen, pressing down, down, right, up, and that changes the text to green, and that's how you know cheat mode is enabled. So let's just get into it. So time starts as soon as you gain control of the children, which is going to happen in about 3, 2, 1. There it is. So now we input invulnerability, which is down, up, down, right, right. Get 10k coins by doing down, left, right, down, down. And then all abilities by doing down, left, right, left, up. So now we're going to buy some of the abilities. I will be buying Team Attack, Ghoul's Bane, Boggle Bane, Minotaur Bane, and Shield Slam, along with Ogre Bane. For Susan, I'm going to buy her ability Hawk Speed, and her ability Fast Reload. Then I believe that's it. Edmund, not going to buy anything. Lucy, also not going to buy anything. So if you could notice on those, you could have seen that there are health upgrades. We don't buy those because of the fact we get invulnerability in this. So in this level, we can see England is being bombed by Germany. This is kind of taking place in the war. We are tasked to get all the children and get out of the house. So you can see we went upstairs. There's actually a cutscene in the downstairs hallway with your mom, but we don't do that because it saves time to skip it. So we found Susan, and Susan uses her flashlight to find Lucy. That's something. This is pretty fast-paced, so I'm going to try and explain it the best I can. Susan, throughout the game, can aim projectiles such as snowballs and her bow and arrow, but it teaches the player is taught this through through the flashlight in this level. But we saw there was a burning bit that we used Edmund to step over. Edmund and Lucy are often used to cross ice paths or other things that could potentially break if Susan or Peter were to walk across them. This also introduces Edmund's climbing ability, which is used sparingly throughout the game, but here it is used to cover up this bit so that everyone can walk across it. All the children have different abilities, those being Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy. They all have different things that make them unique. Like you'll see right here, Peter and Susan are able to move objects, which we do here to cover up fires. So there you go. And then here we switch. We switch right to Susan, and then she uses the key finds the key to end the level. And that's the first level. Hopefully things will slow down a little bit throughout the run, but there's a lot to explain in the first level. Hope I did my best there. I tried to explain most of what happened on screen. So you notice there are coins, and there are also bonus items. Bonus items you get from doing different things or in that level you punch different furniture or can shine your flashlight to get bonus items, but it's an any percent run, so we don't do that because bonus items only count to a completion percentage. They are not useful for beating the game whatsoever, so we try to avoid those best we can.
Your Majesty. Until then,
so this level will also introduce, this level, Glimpse of Narnia, will introduce some other different things, abilities that some of the Pevensey children have to use.
Well, what do you expect? I mean, it's freezing. How do we get out of here?
So as you see, we can use Edmund, and Edmund can pick up sticks. Later in the game, he will use a sword. But we're going to collect tokens here, which is going to unlock team-up attacks. And we'll show those off throughout the run. You can see Edmund can catch a stick on fire and use that to burn different objects, which can help him progress. And you can see there, Lucy can stand on different objects and move them. There, it's a snowball. But you see, we get the team-up abilities, which... Oh, jeez. Oopsies. You see there, we use it to break ice. We will also use it to do a bunch of different things throughout the run. So we don't actually have to fight those wolves. I know it really wants you to, but we absolutely do not have to, especially since we're invulnerable. We can just run right past them like they're nothing. But you can see deep snow is something they use. All of the kids can walk through deep snow besides Lucy, so you will have to use team-up attacks to get her through that deep snow. And this also introduces light and heavy attacks, which you just kind of saw. Pressing the X button will do a light or a heavy attack, which in this case is used to break ice off the branches, and then B is your quick attack, which helps you break the branches after the ice is gone. So that was the Glimpse of Narnia. We're moving on here to the spare room. The spare room will give me a little bit more time to explain. It's a fairly lax level. There's a couple of different things that it introduces, but not too many. But Narnia was released in 2005 to coincide with the movie release of the same name, which all the characters in the game are based on their likeness in the movie. It was developed by Traveler's Tales and published by Buena Vista Games. But you can see Lucy is running away from us. She's upset because nobody believed her about the land of Narnia. But here we introduce hiding as a mechanic. But what I did there is I break one box with Peter and then switch to Susan because her hiding animation takes a lot longer than Peter's. So it's actually better to switch characters after breaking one box. It saves a little bit of time. Small optimization. But like I said, Susan will often use projectiles, and here she gets the ability to use tennis balls, which in this instance is used to open a gate to lead bats out. Oop, I didn't mean to do that, but there you go. There's one of the 16 bonus items in this stage. But yeah, typically we don't get bonus items. It pretty much just slows us down. But we've seen Peter open doors, and he also opens grates by punching them. And then you can use Lucy to crawl through smaller gaps that the other kids couldn't climb through. So going into the dining room, we saw Edmund use the stick earlier. Peter can also use sticks and swords as weapons. And here it's going to help us break some of the boxes. Earlier you saw the boxes take about 3 hits to break. With the stick, it only takes a single hit. So you can see a lot of boxes here. That would take a lot longer to break if we did not have the stick. So again, we have to hide from the housekeeper, Miss McCready, which we saw earlier. Hiding becomes a bigger mechanic throughout the game. There are a lot of different times where you will have to hide to end different levels. But there you go. So we come out, we found Edmund, who is hiding in the rain gutter because, you know, they're mad at him for lying about Narnia. Jeez, Edmund has it rough. But here, again, you can see the climbing ability that Edmund has. We have to use it one more time right here to open up the grate. So there is the grate opening.
Where is he? Where'd you go?
And see, another loud noise is going to alert Miss McCready.
No, hide! It's the McCready.
So now we also have to hide from her. Timers are a pretty big thing you will see throughout the game. You saw it in the first level, the air raid, and now you see it now. But this is a perfect way to basically put the characters into the spare room where they are going to go into Narnia through the wardrobe, just like Edmund and Lucy did earlier. So there you go. There's that level. Now we move on to Lantern Waste, the first level with all 4 characters being in Narnia at the same time. Once again, this level does introduce a little bit more. But you can see here, Lucy wants everyone to meet Mr. Tumnus, so we are going to go to his house. But there, you see, we can get a stick. It's actually just faster to get it with Edmund. There are 2 sticks that you can get, one for Edmund, one for Peter. But since you're going to have to climb as Edmund to light your stick on fire, which we'll see in a second. There you go. It's actually faster to just do it as Edmund. And then you see more ice that you have to break, which we do that with Lucy. And then you can see here, this cave is completely pitch black. In Glimpse of Narnia, it was not. There were torches on the wall. But if you try and walk in there without having gone through and light your stick on fire, oops, it'll actually prevent you from going through. But you see there, we can use, that's another team up attack that you can use with Edmund and then Peter or Susan, either of whom works. But now we actually have to fight the wolves. We can't just run right past them. The wolves here spawn 4 at a time, and you can see we're also being introduced to the combo meter, which if you hit enemies consecutively without taking damage, your combo meter will go up. The higher your combo meter goes, you actually do more damage incrementally. I don't know where the exact benchmarks are, but it does do more damage over time. You can see we've hit an avalanche, which obviously isn't the best, but this introduces us to another new mechanic, which is sliding. This is used pretty sparingly throughout the game. I think it's actually only used in 1 or 2 other places. You see, in any percent where we're not allowed to use cheats, or in 100%, we would be paying a lot more attention here. But it really doesn't matter what happens here, so we're just going to go through. You see each of these glacier-looking things, they have bonus items in them. So in 100%, you would collect those. Or if you're doing any percent or 100%, you would try and be collecting the coins to afford the abilities you're going to need later in the game.
Is everybody okay?
Oh no, the avalanche is cracking the ice.
Edmund, Lucy,
So,
one of you will
again,
have to find a safe
remember what I
path
said
across
earlier
the
about
ice.
Edmund and Lucy
Susan
being
and I
able
are
to walk over,
Hurry.
more fragile things. They are also used in these situations to go through ice puzzles. But you can see I'm constantly punching with Edmund. That is actually faster. I will slow down. You can see his walking speed is a lot slower than just punching your way across the ice. But that gets us through that. Somehow we gave Edmund the stick, and Peter still ends up having it. I guess that's seniority. You can see there, Lucy unlocks her healing ability, but we do not use it throughout the run. Again, invulnerability is a big thing here. See bundles of sticks. That's the first time we've really seen those. This really isn't used throughout the game. The bundles of sticks are. We'll see those a lot later on. But Edmund being able to use them to walk across water, again, not really used. So, yeah, we've done that. Now time to move on. That should be Peter for this segment. Oopsies. But you can see ice is all along this area, which we need to break. So I know it taught you earlier in the game that you should probably be using X, but it's actually faster to just use your light attack here. But you can see here, dwarves light these on fire, which I don't know how that prevents us from moving on, but whatever. We can use Susan. Susan now has snowballs, which you can use to put out the fires. And then the best way is to use Edmund to break this, so you don't have to switch around, because we are coming to another ice puzzle. Which once again we're gonna use Edmund to punch our way across. Move as quickly as we can. So the main reason you can't use Peter and Susan, they tell you they are too heavy to go across the ice, which you see, if we don't step on an ice that turns blue, that means it's safe. You'll see it very slowly cracks and then falls under. That only happens with Edmund and Lucy. If you try and walk over that kind of ice with Peter or Susan, you'll instantly fall in the water and die, regardless of if you're invulnerable or not. That's one of the ways that you can die in Narnia with invulnerability enabled. But you see, we come here, wait for everyone else to catch up, and then we fight wolves. So, wolves actually spawn from 4 distinct spots, so you'll see I'm going to run around basically in a circle, trying to keep my combo so that eventually you'll see I kill the wolves in 1 hit, so I'm trying to keep that combo going so I can continuously run around and kill them in 1 shot. Unfortunately, we lost our combo there, but that's okay. Let's see, 3, 2, 2, and then 1. And then that's the end of Lantern Waste. So, yeah, moving on. Again, here we are moving once again forward to Western Wood. To Western Wood is very similar to Lantern Waste. As far as the enemies you'll fight and whatnot, at least in the beginning of the level, it does also introduce some new mechanics as we go along. So this is the second level to introduce statues. I believe that's something I forgot to talk about. Statues are collected throughout the game, or you're at least supposed to, and statues help you afford support troops in one of the final levels. You can see at the bottom when I splits the Great Battle. Thing is, it's not really that much faster to use those instead of just using yourself to kill in the final level. So it's actually better to just avoid them altogether. They really don't save much time getting them and using them in the final level. So you can see we're using Susan. We're using invulnerability to its fullest extent. You don't have to kill basically any of these, but you can see here, it does force you to kill a couple of the wolves at least. Otherwise, you simply can't put out the fire with Susan. But you also did see a little cutscene there where Susan gets her panpipes and later gets her gift horn. The panpipes are used for several different things throughout the game. You'll see fairly soon we will use the panpipes to put people to sleep. You can also use the panpipes to uncover statues or bonus items. Those are only useful in 100% or cheat 100%, but yeah. But once again, introducing us to a different mechanic, which is going to be Mr. Beaver chewing through branches. Surprisingly enough, this is used more than once. So here, we're basically put in an arena-type area and tasked with protecting Mr. Beaver as he chews through the wood that is blocking the Pevensy's path. Again, using the same strategy I kind of used in Lantern Waste of trying to keep my combo meter as high as possible. But you can see there, when the wolf gets to Mr. Beaver, it doesn't actually do anything aside from stop him from chewing the branches. Mr. Beaver is invulnerable just as we are, and that happens as well in any percent. If you were playing cheap percent, had invulnerability on, put the controller down, went, had lunch, took a nap, if you come back, Mr. Beaver will still be attacked by the wolf, but he will not die. So there is that. You can also see that it is trying to get us to use the fire to burn the branches to make sure that see there at the bottom, fires can be lit to keep wolves back. That was something that was supposed to be introduced in a glimpse to Narnia, but we did not use it because again, it is faster to just move on. It is something you have to do in 100% and cheat 100%, but it is not required here. I find it's just faster and easier to do, to just fight the wolves as they come through. Because you saw there were moments where the snow picked up and I could not move. That also has the side effect of putting out the fires, so you basically have to put them, have to relight them every time. But you can see again more glaciers that we have to use team up attacks to break. So my switching was a little rough there. And once again, you can see deep snow over here, which we have to use a team up attack to get through. We're gonna stay as Susan because here we're using the panpipes. Like I said earlier, we use panpipes to put different enemies to sleep. Here we are going to put the ogre to sleep. Put the ogre to sleep. I got a little ahead of myself. Mr. Beaver was there to explain it beautifully. So yeah, you basically play Guitar Hero and input different colorful buttons. So I mentioned earlier how you have to light fires to keep the wolves back. There are also different things you can do to keep enemies back. You can shoot different things to keep with Susan. You can also use Lucy to crawl through different holes and break different objects. We saw earlier in Lantern Waste how we used a team up attack to knock down rocks. We're going to do the same exact thing here to knock down these. And then, finally, we can use the fire to keep the wolves back. But you can see here, we are once again going to hide, this time from the ogre. Which the ogre is a little bit angry. He got waken up from his nap a little bit early, so he's not very happy. But here we got our first experience using the sword. The sword is more powerful than the stick, but slightly less powerful than the gift sword you get later in the game. And typically it would make this section a lot easier, but what does make it a lot very easy is what's called Ghoul's Bane. Banes are simple combos, which are XA, and they take out any enemy in 2 shots if you land both the X and the A attack. But you can see, makes these enemies fairly trivial. Ghouls take 4, with no combo, ghouls take 4 hits to kill, and then if you have a high enough combo, they go down to 3 and then 2 hits. But you can see here, we can just right away have it with 2 hits, which makes this infinitely faster than it would be otherwise, especially since we are invulnerable and we don't have to worry about taking hits. See, it takes 4 hits with your Chester quick attack, but the Ghoul Bane takes them out in 2. You can also see the bar near the health display, which is your combo meter. Certain attacks and abilities you use will take up your combo meter, and eventually, if your combo meter is too low, you obviously wouldn't be able to use them. But once again, we are hiding, and that is going to end the level. So you see, we hide from the ogre, and that is going to be to Western Wood. So yeah, we're never ever gonna see another ogre again. Yeah, that's the one and only ogre you'll see throughout this playthrough, which is pretty cool. But here we move on to Beaver Dam. Oh, but you guys thought I was being funny. I pulled a fast one on you. We do see ogres again. We bought Ogre Bane. However, Ogre Bane does not work on this guy, who is our first boss, which is just a fairly generic ogre. Later in the game, we'll be able to take out an ogre in simply 1 or 2 button presses, but right now, we have to go through a whole boss fight to take him out. You see, we slightly damage him with any of the characters, and then we have Lucy get on him, and he gets damaged that way. Somehow Lucy is able to, stay on, and he decides he's just going to hold on to her. Nothing too bad. You can see there, put Edmund on him, hit him with Peter, and then finally take Susan over, and then take him down to about half health. This is a 3-phase boss fight, as you'll see. You take him down a half bar every time, and then he gains back a quarter. So it does take 3 phases. But you'll see here, you'll see dwarves coming out, which we've seen before. They were introduced last level, but what they do this time is if you get on the ogre's back with Lucy and the dwarves are still there, they will immediately shoot Lucy off, which means we have to kill them first. But now that the dwarves are dead, we don't have to worry about that. We can just simply wail on the ogre for a little bit more and complete phase 2. We don't have to worry about any of the other the ghouls or anything like that, just because they can't hurt us. You can see we're getting somewhere. Almost. So we're going to get more arrows to be able to take out the dwarves. Arrows are slightly more powerful, I believe. I believe these arrows take 3. These arrows take 3. It takes 3 of arrows to kill the dwarves. it takes about 5 snowballs to do the same thing. So arrows are slightly better, but I don't typically go out of my way to use them. But you can see that. Get on the ogre with Lucy. Wail a little bit more. Then we have to get Edmund on there in a second. There it is. Edmund. And then Peter. And then finally Susan. Which that is going to end the boss fight in just a second. There it is.
That was close.
Mr. Beaver, are you alright?
Yes.
Thank you, children. You can tell he's very appreciative of us. Oh, look at that, a gold. But here we come to the absolute worst, most not fun level in the entire game. Through the tunnel. Which, you'll see what I mean in just a second. I'll try to explain why it's not fun, but I think you'll be able to see it on your own. You're a smart cookie. You'll be able to see. It's just not very good.
Children, I can chew through the exit. I'll be as quick as I can.
So if you heard him, he's gonna chew through the exit, and that cursed bar is right back up at the top. But he immediately decides, I'm gonna get kidnapped by a ghoul. So you have to run over and help this guy out. So this ghoul, this quote-unquote ghoul, is not really treated like an actual ghoul. If you use Ghoulbane on him, I'm pretty sure the text will appear, but nothing will happen. It takes 10 hits to kill that ghoul, no matter what you do. But you can see, wolves are trying to break through, so we have to go stop them. Mr. Beaver is going to start chewing through the exit, which already looks quite clear, might I add. You can see when I'm paired up with Edmund and, Peter and Susan, which probably should have said. Edmund at that point, when they're at the Beaver's Dam, betrays the children and goes to the White Witch, which is why we won't see him for a while. But here you can see Mr. Beaver constantly gets stolen, but if you hit him exactly 4 times, you get introduced to new enemies in a new area. These guys are called Boggles. But you saw the wolves earlier. Now we're gonna get, now we're gonna get into Boggles trying to push a rock so that other Boggles can swarm you. So that's 3 things. That's wolves trying to break through, Boggles trying to push a rock, and Mr. Beaver getting kidnapped all the time. You can see whenever I team up with Susan and Peter, what I always do is I always shoot arrows with Susan, which if you're controlling Susan while in the team up attack, she's a lot more accurate with her arrows than she is otherwise. Which does make a good amount of sense. Obviously, if you're controlling Peter, you wouldn't have as much control of what Susan's doing. But you can see here, the wolves are back. Get rid of them real quick. And then we're going to run back to where Mr. Beaver is, because we're anticipating the fact that he's going to get captured again. But you can see I was wrong in my anticipation. The Boggles have come back and they're trying to push the rock. Try and team up with Susan to get over there. See, we're just constantly spamming B essentially as soon as we get out into this area, which does actually collect statues. You can see the wolves are back, which again have to go take care of those. So you can probably tell why this level is not very fun and why most people don't like it, but you can see there, two things. Whenever Mr. Beaver gets kidnapped, he gets kidnapped right up here. Well, oops, I made a mistake. I let him go, which is the absolute worst thing you want to do, because the closer he is, the sooner he can start chewing through the branches again. But the other thing that I did is I skipped the cutscene, which is not something I've done throughout the game, and there is a reason. You are only able to skip cutscenes in Narnia when you've already seen the cutscene before. So the same cutscene plays every time the wolves come or the boggles come. So, oops. You can see there, same cutscene, so I was able to skip it again. So most of the cutscenes in this game you don't see more than once, unless you do, of course, die. Or it's like this, where you're constantly, repeatedly seeing the same cutscene over and over, which definitely doesn't drive me insane. But yeah. You can see we're running across, and once again, just taking out the boggles before they can push the rock. The boggles pushing the rock is definitely slower by a wide margin compared to the wolves breaking through. You can kind of see the meter up on the top left next to Susan's face. It is decreasing a lot faster than the boggles pushing the rock. So typically the wolves take the... I was going to say the wolves take the first priority. Mr. Beaver usually takes the first priority. We were just too far away. It just wouldn't make sense at that point to try and go save Mr. Beaver and leave the wolves. But you can see now we have to go find him. But that's actually really good. You can see the pool that has Mr. Beaver actually stayed very close to the top, which is very good for us, because then we can almost immediately push him back. But you can also kind of tell this level is very RNG dependent, unfortunately. Just because of the timers, I have not seen a consistent pattern while playing this. I've tried to analyze it a lot. I've analyzed different runs, and it honestly might take analyzing the code, if anything, but I'm not that smart. So if anybody watching this knows how to analyze code, that would be very, very helpful. But yeah, it's quite RNG dependent. You can see Mr. Beaver is getting quite close. I'm going to park myself right next to him, just because when Mr. Beaver finishes chewing down the branches, it immediately ends the level. That's why I parked myself right there, because I wanted to be right here just in case. Which you can see, as soon as I finished killing him, he was immediately able to start chewing the branches again. We should be at a point in the level where we don't have to go kill the wolves. Mr. Beaver should finish before anything happens. Hopefully, otherwise, I'm pretty sure he starts from the very beginning. You start from the very beginning of the level if you do indeed die. But there it is. Alright. Good deal. But that is through the tunnel, the worst level in the entire game, in my personal, professional opinion. But again, moving on to Frozen Lake, which after you go through the tunnel, the Pevensey children decide that they are going to take a trip across the lake to see Aslan, this big old lion whose CGI was actually better than the Lion King movie that came out in 2020 or 2019. Don't at me. We peaked in lion CGI technology with the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But you can see here, we have to break branches. This will be a very common thing in this level. For whatever reason, branches are a very good thing to break. yeah, first branch is done. You can see we can do the team up attack as well again to make sure that we can kill the dwarves. But you can see ice glaciers came up in front of the tree branch, obviously, meaning there's no possible way you could break the tree branch. So what you can see, hopefully, is we're not going to try and kill any of the ghouls, partially because we're invulnerable, but also partially because sometimes their attack and then Peter taking damage will cut short his animation on his it'll cut his animation short for his attack, so he actually attacks faster sometimes while taking damage. We're going to try and do it again here. We're not going to kill any of the boggles. We're just knocked over the tree. So you can see there. You can see there, we got really close. You can see we were one hit away essentially from taking down the branch, which is unfortunate. It is possible to do that in 2 cycles, but it very heavily utilizes what I was just talking about. But once again, ice is breaking, so you know what that means. Ice puzzles, but we're going to get into those in a second. Here we very heavily utilize Ghoulbane once again. You can see the ghouls will spawn in a fairly consistent pattern out of the ice. So basically, as soon as they pop out of the ice, you can use Ghoulbane and take them down quite easy. You can slightly see where they're going to come out. You can slightly see them through the ice if you look kind of close. You see here, we're able to use Lucy. Lucy gets through the ice. Once again, can fall through there if you're not careful. Trust me, I have, and it is definitely a not fun way to lose a run. Typically, if you were doing this level through any percent, you would only have Ghoulbane at this point, which is very good, but you'll see later will be a bunch of new types of enemies which we will actually have the Banes for at this point, which we're not supposed to have, but we are able to have just through having cheats. But you can see there, very easy, got through all the ghouls, and now we have to walk across the second little plane of ice. Thankfully, we only have to do ice 2 more times, and then we're pretty much done with it, as far as these ice puzzles go, just because the ice is melting. But you can see here, we get introduced to another new enemy type, which are Minotaurs, which are one of the toughest enemies to take down, just because they have a very high tendency to block until you get Minotaur Bane, and then once you do, they become fairly trivial enemies. You can see here, enemies are just kind of spawning in a pattern, so we're just running around doing the same Bane combo, and that is taking them down fairly quickly. You can see boggles, you can see ghouls, and you can see actually dwarves as well, which we are going to switch to Susan to take those guys out very quickly. You can also hit those exploding barrels like I just did, and that takes out enemies fairly quickly, but with that, Frozen Lake is now completed. So, if you're wondering why this is going to gold as much as it did, I died when I first did that. But you might have been able to see it or read it or not at all, but the kids just got gifts from Santa, who they really just met after that level. Peter got the gift sword, which is his best and final sword, We will see it here. Unlike the other sword that had the blue hue, it has a golden type hue and it is easily the best weapon you get. Susan gets the ivory horn and the gift bow. Oh. Well, there you can see an example of how you are able to still die even though you are actually very, very invulnerable. Falling through ice is a very big problem, and yeah, I happen to do it. But as I was saying, Susan gets the ivory bow, which is, the ivory horn, excuse me, which is essentially exactly the same as the panpipes. There's no real significant difference. But the gift bow is cool in that you can see it recharges. It recharges its arrows so you don't have to constantly be picking up arrows. But you can see here, you can also kind of see how the wolves took 2 shots with both the blue sword and the stick, but with the gift sword it only takes 1 shot, so it is a lot more powerful. But once again, we are back to, I guess, a quote-unquote sliding segment, but it's similar to what we did in Lantern Waste with the avalanche, and instead here it's on the river. But you can see here, invulnerability helps us because if you bump into rocks, you actually lose a full bar of health. If you don't have invulnerability on, you can see the health bar is kind of segmented into 8 bars, 4 of which are full right now because we did not buy any health upgrades. But each time you bang into those rocks, you lose 1 bar of health. But something that can actually happen is you can get caught on the rocks or anything, and what that'll do is that it makes you fall off the little ice piece you're on, and that instantly kills you. That is another one of the ways that you can die while invulnerability is on. And see here, there is a lot going on. There are things dropping rocks, there are ogres and boggles pushing rocks. See, they broke the entire thing there. But we made it to shore, and here we have another boss. This is Mogrim, who is the captain of the secret police. He is joined by his posse of wolves. But in this boss fight, we're always going to be looking to kill these wolves first. We do not want to put all of our attention on Mogrim unless he is alone, like he is right now. Otherwise, he's just not going to take that much damage. The boss is fairly scripted, so yeah, whenever you see wolves that are not Mogrim, you want to go after them first. You can see Mogrim is slightly bigger than the other wolves and is a little bit more gray than a little bit more of a gray coat rather than black or white, which is how I'm able to identify him and know to stay away. You can also tell just from the way he attacks with that stomp attack that he does after you hit him 3 times. That is devastating for any percent, and especially for 100% because that is a combo killer and a half. See you there, oopsies, I made it, uh-oh. But you see, we hide Lucy, and then we hide Susan in the trees. Take down the wolves. Mogrim will go attack them. You hit him with Peter, and then you can use, you can hit him with the other kids until he gets off Peter. Then you can use Peter, or you might be able to use the other, you might be able to use Susan and Lucy, but why would you? We haven't used Lucy very much this entire run, and there is a purpose for that. She is easily the weakest of the Pevensey children, and along with the fact that her main ability of being able to heal other characters at will, that kind of gets overshadowed by the fact we can never take damage. Another ability that she has is actually to tame animals and enemies. She can, if you make a combo with Lucy, what happens is she will, if you have the ability unlocked, she can actually mount different animals, like she would be able to get on the wolves. She can get on Minotaurs. She can get on ghouls, boggles. She cannot, unfortunately, get on ogres. But that's part of the abilities that make her slightly unique compared to the other peasantry kids. You can see there, that is the second cycle, very tantalizingly close to having him killed, but unfortunately he is not. Wait, you see there, get Lucy up in the tree again. And once again, kill all the wolves first, and then attack Mongrim after. You can see Mongrim does that pounce attack, which is very devastating just because of the fact that it knocks you over. It is actually quite annoying. You can see there we get a bonus item. You get bonus items in this level for building up 12 combos. Which is quite easy to do in cheap percent, as you can kind of see, because of the fact you cannot get hit and all the wolves kind of just come really close, especially because of the fact that they cannot block your attacks, unlike some of the later enemies. See there, get Susan up. This will be the last wave of wolves before the end of the level. See there, get another bonus item. Hit Mongrim. This time you don't have to get Mongrim off Peter. He is just dead there. And that's the Great River. Moving on here, we have Rescue Edmund. So we have not had Edmund since Beaver Dam, and that is because he went away to the White Witch, and we finally decided, I guess we can go pick up our little brother. But this boss is quite funny because this little man here is Ginnebrick, I believe. But you can see, you just kind of stand there. He can't really do anything to you. But you also see there is a long animation after he makes himself dizzy of him. After he makes himself dizzy, there's a long spinning animation he does. What you can do after you push him into the tree and you tie him up, you can actually switch characters to save a little bit of time. You can see I'm specifically using Edmund to tie him up. That is because Edmund has the stick, which, like I said, is weaker than the gift sword that Peter has. If you use Edmund in this scenario to beat up Ginnebrick, it'll actually take 4 cycles rather than the 3 cycles it'll take with Peter. So yeah, big deal to use Edmund in this situation. But you can see he's trying his best, but you know, it's not really working all that well. He's spinning though. You gotta give him credit. He's agile. But you can see that is the last phase of the boss. And now we will be introduced to an all new enemy type. Well, actually two new enemy types. Those being giants and minotaurs. You can see minotaurs kind of pulling up. They are very tough because of the fact you do not get a bane to deal with them. But giants here, especially in cheat percent, they can be easily exploited because if you use the team up attack with Peter and Edmund, and you are specifically Edmund, you can see the attacks get more powerful over time, which makes it quite easy to take down these giants. You can also use the barrels, which you can light on fire to do even more damage, but I find it a lot easier and more consistent to just use this method. Although I have, unfortunately, been put out of bounds one time. But you can can see here, take down the 2 giants, and we're easily moving on. I also forgot about a different enemy type that you can kind of see. They're really tiny, they're really annoying, they're called ankle slicers. I didn't know the actual name until I bought the strategy guide, which has the names of all the characters, which is why I know them now. I just call them the little dudes. But you can see here, just use Minotaur Bane to get rid of them. But what I do personally here on Minotaurs is I will use Shield Slam. Shield Slam will take down their armor, and then it makes it quite easy to take them out. And then use Minotaur Bane, and then you can quickly take these guys down. This is actually the point you would unlock Minotaur Bane. I believe right after Great River is when you would be able to. But you see I use the Bane combo to knock off their armor, and then I use Shield Slam, which makes it a lot easier to take them down. I will be doing that pretty much the entire rest of the run, specifically to take down Minotaurs. But you can see they have a really hard time staying on this little area, which is quite annoying. I couldn't tell if I got my input dropped or if I didn't have enough combo meter, but regardless, we take down all 10 of the Minotaurs, and now we move on to this little segment where, once again, there's a timer. But this time it's actually a good timer. We have to simply wait for the ally forces to come and basically pick us up. Big difference between this and the movie is that, God forbid, Peter helps at all in this scenario. It's basically the equivalent of like an army putting their best general on the front line. You wouldn't want to do it. But in the game, they thought they needed an extra level or something, so here it is. But this is actually one of my favorite levels, so I'm not complaining at all. I just thought it was an interesting change they decided to make between the movie and the game. But you can see there, after the timer runs out, you get the complete Bro Centaur.
Something's coming.
Hold on, my kings! We're here! Charge them down!
Oh boy, I love him. I love him a lot. But you can see, there it is. Level is complete. Oh, look at that 15-second time save. Whew. But we just had a level with only Peter and Edmund, so now we're going to flop back and have a level with only Susan and Lucy. Nice change of pace. This is Follow Aslan, which this will use some of the abilities that we've seen with Susan and Lucy and make one of the harder levels in the entire game, simply because it's a little awkward not having Peter or Edmund to help out. But you can see here, what we're going to do is we break these areas to expose places to use our ivory horn, and then we do one of these numbers to put the guarding centaur to sleep. Otherwise he catches us and puts us back basically to bed. Same thing here, that guy's taking patrol, but somehow he doesn't have any peripheral vision and can only see right in front of him. You can see I'm actually going to wait because I've actually had that centaur immediately hit Lucy as soon as I throw her. But you can see he charges in, you use the sleeping thing, and that helps out. You can see there's patrolling centaurs, which we obviously can't get spotted by them. So once again, we close this guy's blinds, he turns around to open them back up, and we run while the centaurs are not patrolling near us. And then this is the last point where we will need to put guards to sleep. Guards, remember how I specifically use that term. This time it's 2 guards, they're quite close, but it is still quite simple to do. But you can see now we've made it past the camp, right into enemies that nobody has seemed to spotted. But first, we have to use Lucy to go through this hole. We hit these rocks like we did in the earlier stages to create a path for Susan. Now what Susan's going to do is you can come over here and we can see a giant. So we use that. And then we used the sleeping spell, or the sleeping tome, to put him to beddy by. And you can see he's a little bit tired. It's been a long day of standing still and swinging his axe when nobody's around that he wants to hurt. But you can see we also introduce another mechanic known as fire arrows. Now fire arrows, as you can see, they are able to burn down branches, but they also do slightly more damage to enemies while using them. But it is kind of inconvenient to use them, I won't lie. You can see we got the fire arrows. We burn down these three little branches blocking our path. And now we just basically kill enemies. Now this would be a lot more difficult if we were not invulnerable, because as you can see, they gang up on you really fast. And we don't have Peter and his Banes to protect us. You could see the wolves doing like their kind of shout. That is a big problem because it knocks you down. But you can see after you kill all the enemies, it immediately gives you a chance to hide, and then you it gives you a chance to hide, and that's how you end the stage. So you can see here, that is Follow Aslan. And if you're wondering, I got caught. The area that I said I was going to hold up because I didn't want to get caught, that's where I got caught twice. And yeah, I lost a lot of time there. But like I said, moving on to this time Battle of Baruna. Now Battle of Baruna is one of the coolest stages, but it is kind of difficult. I've been referring to them as giants the whole time. I really meant cyclopses. I'm very sorry if anyone was really confused. Man, that's embarrassing. So these guys that you will see in a second are the real giants that you will be facing throughout the game. But this is really the only place you see them. Sorry, I meant Cyclops, but this is a giant. But you can see we have several different things. So basically we need to defeat a whole bunch of different enemies to call in reinforcements, which will kill the giants. But you can see we had bundles of sticks, and what these bundles of sticks can be used for is, if I can actually hit them, you see if you hit their feet, they stumble backwards, which is huge because right now, you know, it's only one giant, but you'll see very quickly it becomes a lot more difficult to keep them at bay. So those bundles of sticks are going to become increasingly more important and useful as we go along. And you see the archers take down the first giant. Now what we're going to do is in the space where there is no giants and nothing to kill, we are going to avoid killing anything because of the fact that you don't want to kill enemies and take away from the counter. Because yes, the counter is very important. What I usually do is if there are no enemies around, that none of the specific enemies that I can go out and hit, what I will do is I will constantly be hitting these stick bundles back, not only to limit the number of enemies on screen, but also to keep the giants at bay. But these stick bundles are very, very powerful, killing basically anything in one shot, aside from giants. And also, besides Cyclops. Cyclops are quite strong. But every other enemy essentially in this game can be taken out just by using a bundle of sticks. You can see we have these ankle slicers, which are really hard to hit sometimes, I won't lie. We take them down, we call in the eagles, and they take down What's really nice though is in this level you can see it takes down the closest giant to your base. It would have made me really sad if it wasn't like that. You can see I'm kind of concerned about that giant, so I'm going to hit him with, I guess only one. Hit him with one of the stick bundles to keep them at bay, and that should be good for us. That should buy us enough time to kill werewolves. I also didn't point out werewolves. They are another new enemy. They also are one of the enemies that don't have banes to kill them, but they're only a slight step up from regular wolves. They only take 3 shots, 3 quick attacks to kill, so they are fairly simple. So you can see here, I don't know why I was killing them. I just said that I usually don't, to try and save them for when the giants come. But you can see we finally have them. It's Minotaurs. We only have to kill 5, which is super, super nice. But you can see, kill those 5, and then we can call in the eagles again, and then we'll take those out. You can see we have to take down ogres as well. At this point, you wouldn't have Ogre Bane. You actually have to kill 2 ogres without Ogre Bane in order to unlock it, but since we are playing G%, we have all the abilities we need. But you can see, very quickly able to take down these 2 ogres, which is going to allow us to use archers. Last but not least, we have to kill 2 Minotaurs. Once again, something we do not have Banes to kill, which is a little, makes them one of the harder enemies to take down in this game. But like I said, usually I will run around and kind of hit. You can see actually the stick bundles took them out very, very quickly. But after you take down 6 giants, this guy decides that he is done playing around with the centaur and wants to fight you guys instead. So this guy here is General Ottoman. Now the strategy I typically use with this guy is to turn around, face away from him, and use Shield Slam. And it sounds dumb, it really does. Why would you want to face away? But he actually has armor on right now, which is basically impenetrable. You can get that armor off by hitting him with stick bundles, or by using Shield Slam after he's attacked. We can see, once you get him going, you can just wail on him, and it takes him down very, very quickly. So yeah, the centaur he got tired with playing with is kind of upset that he didn't want to play anymore and decides, you need to die. But that is Battle of Baruna. So this is absolutely the home stretch of the game. But you saw we had one stage where we keep kind of flip-flopping back and forth between Lucy and Edmund, or Lucy and Susan, and Peter and Edmund. We flop right back to Lucy and Susan. So welcome to the Witch's Castle, the only stage where we ever need to collect statues. In the movie, you can kind of see throughout, the White Witch freezes her enemies and basically puts them as statues in her castle. Yes, Susan, she did indeed do all of this. But you can see this is the only stage where we're actually required to collect statues. But what these are going to do is these statues are, you can see they're filling our ivory horn meter. We can use our ivory horn after it is filled to call Aslan, who is going to unfreeze somebody who will help us progress. In this case, it's another centaur.
The way onwards is open, daughters of Eve.
Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it. You can see here, we're using Susan to open up these different areas to get light on the statues. These wraith-looking things do not like the light at all. They very much dislike the light. So light actually makes them leave the statue, but it does make them basically go everywhere in the stage, which can knock Susan, can damage Susan and Lucy, and a lot of times the wraiths will travel right over the spot where you're trying to call Aslan, which can knock you off. But you can see there, nice and easy, able to put in the button combo and call Aslan over to help us. So that very nice gentleman decided to open the door, and we're very appreciative. So if we don't kill those wolves, basically Lucy will keep trying to kill those wolves as much as possible, which is not what we want out of her. See there, the wraith really doesn't like the light. Once again, needs some vitamin D, needs to go outside. See, we use the team up attack once again, and some mechanic we haven't used in a while. Last time we used it was in Frozen River. We basically break things with Lucy by going into an area she can only access, and this is basically going to open up doors of ice. See, that makes the roof a lot more fragile, and Susan decides, yeah, let's shoot that. That's a good idea. That won't collapse all upon us. Which, luckily, because, you know, plot shield, it doesn't. It only puts some light into the room, which, once again, the wraiths really hate. Once again, that allows wolves to get in, which are going to try and make our day not the best. Once again, get all the statues, run over to the golden spot on the floor, and very quickly punch in the combination. I was like literal frames away from being knocked off the spot. See, he helps open the door. What I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to team up these two, because otherwise Lucy is going to... Oh boy. Alright, well, so much for that idea. Lucy would pretty much stay back here, and you can see it right now. There are glaciers we have to break with the team up attack, and if you don't team up with her, basically Lucy will forever try and stay in that room and take down the wolves, even though CPU controlled characters cannot do any damage. See here, we just kind of back ourselves into a corner and basically spam the B button at the boggles. The boggles climb up, they're invulnerable for just a little bit, and then we just spam B until we are able to take them down. They actually have a slight invulnerability period, you can kind of tell, which isn't the best. See, after you kill a certain amount, you're able to come into this room. And the wraiths really didn't like the sunlight, so they're probably not going to like fire arrows. But the good thing about fire arrows is you can see you can instantly collect statues by firing fire arrows, and also plot convenience. The fact that an ogre can ram through a door and then lightly shut it behind him with little to no effort. So, as you can see, have to use Susan to open up this area. You run in here, move this, ogre slams. You call Aslan once again, ogre pounds his chest because he's so big and strong and tough. And Aslan casually throws a door on him, killing him, and you get to move on and progress. And you can see she is so happy to see Mr. Tumnus, saying, "How wonderful is this? It's Mr. Tumnus. He is completely frozen solid." We skip the cutscene, but we do see Aslan is very nice and decides to unfreeze him. But that is the witch's castle, and we move on to the Great Battle. Now the difference with the Great Battle, like I said, you're going to see the screen where we're able to spend the statues we've collected throughout the game to buy support. But it is way faster to just not use any of them, so we just skip the we skip the purchasing part and move on to the great battle. This is another arena-like scenario where you simply are thrown into a small area and you are tasked with fighting more and more increasingly difficult enemies over a period of time. See, right now we simply are fighting ghouls, but different enemies will be spawning throughout the time to try and throw us off. You can see, very quickly able to take those down. We have to. Ankle slicers only take one hit to kill, so a big part of what we're going to do, a big part of what I do in this level is using shield slam, because of the fact that it has such a big area of effect. It is able to take down ankle slicers that might be in the area, and it very much helps us out. But it's always a balance of trying to kill enemies so you finish around the same point as far as killing them and moving on to the next wave. I mean, you can see there, unfortunately, we killed all the ankle slicers and still had 2 more ghouls to kill. But you might see up there, oh, dwarves? Wait, we haven't seen any dwarves. Well, we haven't really looked, but you can see out here, there are dwarves right up here, which you can use. I typically use Susan and Peter's team-up attack to help out with that. But it's pretty inconsistent whether you can hit both of the dwarves with the team-up attack. Most of the time I can only hit the one on the right. There's been like 1 or 2 times where I've ever been able to hit the other dwarf while in team-up attack mode, which is unfortunate, but it's what you have to do. You could probably get away with in cheap percent just simply using Susan on her own and not using Peter, but I've always just used a team-up attack, and that's what I find easiest to do. And it also makes me not have to think about what the difference is between running G% and P%. Typically my strategies as far as what I do in fights are almost exactly the same. See? That was actually fairly good as far as that area goes. But you can see once again, we have to take down dwarves, which we don't always have to do throughout the run. I believe there are only 3 of these waves where you actually do have to take down dwarves. But typically they are fairly reserved. But quite a quick wave. I'm actually fairly happy with that. But now you can see we move on to having Minotaurs in our waves, which are definitely not the best. They do spawn 2 at a time, which is also not very great, because that means you specifically have to go out of your way to make sure you are killing them first. Otherwise, you're probably going to kill everything else first, and that is just going to make your life a whole lot more difficult. Like you can just see, we already have all of the Minotaurs that we need, but we are still needing 2 Minotaurs to move on from this wave. So yeah, I made a slight oopsie by killing a bunch of Minotaurs without noticing. You see there, able to take him down. But once again, have to take down ankle slicers, which, funnily enough, if I don't focus on ankle slicers in this part, a lot of times I just don't have enough by the time this wave is supposed to end, and I actually have to seek out ankle slicers, which is always kind of funny to me. But you can see there, we are down to 2 Minotaurs. We don't need these Minotaurs anymore. But the Minotaurs take their sweet time getting up here. Have that really slow strut. What also can happen is they can be pushed back by the other Pevensey kids, making them harder to hit. We kind of saw something similar to that when we were doing Rescue Edmund. You can see them falling off of the one little plateau. It's very similar to how that happens, but it happens here. So you can see, just like the Minotaurs from earlier, you want to avoid taking down the ogres too quickly, because you want the idea is to finish off the Minotaurs and ogres around the same time. But as you can see, that's simply not going to happen at this point. The Minotaurs are spawning quite slow. So you have to wait. Able to take that one down. Now we gotta run over here. Try and take this one down. One more shield slam does it, and then the last one should spawn from over here. Gonna stand back a little bit just so it has room to get inbounds. Otherwise, like I said, sometimes the other characters will run over in an attempt to sabotage it, essentially, making it a lot more difficult to kill any of the enemies. But this one is the final stand, essentially. I believe this is the last one, but you can see 3 ogres, 6 Minotaurs, and 10 Minotaurs. Like I said before, we have to make sure we're focusing on these Minotaurs just because they are the hardest to kill. Otherwise, we're going to have a weird waiting period where, again, we have to wait for the Minotaurs to spawn. So able to take them down there. Able to take that ogre down, and now we just wait for another Minotaur to pop up. Once again, big deal. Like I said, I have to stress it because it is a huge thing that you have to take down those Minotaurs just so you finish everything around the same point, which is the fastest way to do it all. The Minotaur should be coming. It looks like they're both about to spawn around the same time. After this, you can see that is the last little bit of that, and that is the Great Battle. And now we are moving on to the final level of this run, which is the White Witch. Now, the White Witch fight is a bit of a long one. There are a couple phases to her fight. If you at all recall the movie, there is a time they are fighting before and after Edmund gets stabbed, and that is very clearly represented here as well. See, we have to wait for her to do her thing. We can't really do anything to her at this point, but haha, we're invulnerable. She can't do anything to us either. You see she hops back. Oops, I got my order wrong. So right now, you see we need to get a 5-hit combo. We need to hit her with arrows, and then we need to hit her with Edmund specifically. And after that, you can see we have 2 Cyclopses to take down. Now, this stage, you haven't really seen it much throughout the game, but what this stage loves to do is it loves to knock you over. You can see basically anything and everything will knock over characters. Obviously not It'll knock over the CPU, but it will not knock over us, simply because, you know, we're invulnerable as the player-controlled character. So whoever we have pretty much will stay up the entire time. But everyone else is going to be flopping over, which does make this a little bit more difficult. You'll see the the Cyclops should come out soon, but what we're going to do first, yeah, there they are. What we're going to do first is we are going to take down every other enemy because of the fact that it'll just make it easier. What I'm also going to be doing is running around hitting the burning. I will be going around hitting the different bundles of sticks into just hitting them, hoping that one of them will land. Because of the fact that bundles of sticks on fire do half the Cyclops' health and damage. But you can see here, after we take down everything, we can do the same strategy that we use in Rescue Edmund, which is doing that team attack, which does make it a lot easier in my opinion. I know some people prefer to, other runners will just prefer to simply do the intended method, which is to push the burning stick bundles into the Cyclops, but I just find this slightly more consistent because of the fact you don't have to aim anything. Peter just doesn't want to team up anymore. That's alright, we'll just use Susan then. That's fine. But after the Cyclopses go down, you can see the White Witch is like, fine, whatever. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna stay right here, considering this is exactly where the witch is gonna flip. And since we're invulnerable, it does not mean anything to us. But you can see right there that she isn't very happy with Edmund, because Edmund decided to break her little ice staff, and yeah. So we no longer have Edmund for the rest of this fight, but that's okay. Oh boy. But you see here, we have to shoot the White Witch 5 times, and then we have to catch her on fire. To do that, the only way is to push the burning stick pile. You have to do that 3 times to fill up Susan's ivory horn, and then after the fact, you are able to call Aslan. But what I'm going to try and do right here is I'm going to try and bait her into attacking, but I'm also going to have Susan and Peter, because of that specifically. She loves to do this pound attack. It's similar to the pounce attack that you do, that Mogrim does in the Frozen Lake. Oh boy. But what it does is it knocks down, it'll knock down the characters. You can see Susan is down right now. You have to switch to Lucy, and Lucy has to do the fire cordial in order to pick them back up. So yeah, you want to bait her into attacking. You can see push. Miss there, unfortunately. Do it there. Switch to Susan. Oh man, that would have been cool. There it is. And that's a world record. But you do one final ivory horn with Susan, and that is Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, cheap percent. So you can see Aslan takes down the witch, and all is good in Narnia. So I hope you guys enjoyed that run. I definitely did. That was very fun to do. I hope it gives some insight to some of the things that we do in the run. But yeah,
King Edmund,
that's gonna be it for me. So yeah, License-a-thon. Thank you for taking a look at this. This was super fun to do. But yeah, very cool. Very cool. It was a very fun time.